Okay, wonderful people. Sorry, this is Mr. Ndabezita once again, and this time I want us to look at the array, and there's something very interesting that I think we can look at. We are not going to deal with the strongly typed arrays, but what I want us to do is to allow the user to initialize the array with the input values. But we are going to look at this in terms of an array that accepts an object. Right. So let us look as to how we can create such a code if it does exist, and see whether we can learn something from this or whether we can do what. Right. It is very important that in this tutorial we start first by creating a class. We are going to add a class, and we can call this class let's call it an employee. Let's call this an employee class, and we are going to make it public. Right, and what we are going to do inside of this class, we are going to create auto-implemented properties. The first thing an employee would have, okay, it's fine, we can have an ID of the employee, and then secondly we can have a string which is the name of this employee, and then we can have a salary of this employee. Let's just have these three auto implemented properties. Let's just have those three, and then from there let us create a constructor that will be able to initialize an employee with some values. Very, very important. So let's have a public employee, let's have a public employee constructor employee. Right, employee constructor, sorry, let me just do this. So let's have a constructor that accepts an int which we will call ID, a string that we will call name, and a double which we will call the salary. And from there we will say that the ID this ID is equals to the ID that was passed in, and then we will say that the name will be equals to the name that was passed in, and then the salary will be equals to the salary that was passed in. But I want you to note something in here. Let me just show you this very fast. I know we dealt with this, but I think it is important that we look into this. When you hover over here, this name is exactly the same name as the name of the property, and then to differentiate from those two we use this keyword. And you can see now this refers to the property and this refers to the salary inside of your constructor. So it is very important that we try to note that. So this is just what we have. It is a constructor. Okay, that is fine. And then secondly, what I want us to do here is to have a public method that returns a void, and we will call this print data, and it will accept no arguments, and all it has to do, let me just have an import using static system.console. Very good. All it will do is to just have a write line, and in this write line let us first try to just say ID, and then let us just provide the ID of this individual. Let me use interpolation, and then we will have the ID, and then from there let's have a new line, and we will say name, and let's just have the name of this individual. Let's have a new line, and salary, let's have the salary of this individual. So this is all what we have, and let me not have a write line in here, let me just have a write there. But I know after ID it will go to the next line, it will print the name, go to the next line, and then print the salary. This is just the basic thing that we have. So from there, that is fine. Let us go to the main, and let's go and create an employee of array, and we will call this employees, and this will be equals to new employees. And now here I need to specify the value inside of these brackets. I need to specify how many of these that I want to have. Now I want to have a write line and say how many objects of type employee do you want? And then the user will enter an int value. Okay, let me just do this, and then I'll have an int which I will call an input equals I will say convert, because it comes as an int, convert dot to int 16, that is fine. And then I'll have my read line, right? And then I'm going to initialize my array with this user input. Now the error should go away. Right, from there what I'm going to do, I am going to have a for loop. I will say int I equals 0, and then I should be less than the employees dot length, and I will increment that by 1. Very good. And then from there, one thing that I'm going to do here, I'm going to have a prompt. Let me have a prompt and say enter ID, and then the user will enter an ID, and I'll have a string which I will call ID, and this will be equals to read line, because by default C# converts everything to a string. And then I'll have another write line where I say enter employee name. And please let me do this. Let me just do this. I will be back just in a few minutes, guys. Just in a few minutes. Right, let us continue. Right, guys, when we are here, so I wanted just to make some few changes. Let's have a write so that the user can enter on the same line. Okay, so we will read that, and then we have a second one, enter the employee name. So I'm going to store that inside a string that I will call name, which is also equals to read line. All right, I think there's a mistake that I have done there. ID is an int. So let me just come here and say int ID equals convert dot to int 16, and then I will have my read line, because ID is an int, not a string. And then from there the user will enter a name, and I will store inside of that name variable. And then lastly, let me have a write and just say enter salary, and then I will have a double which I will call salary, and this will be equals to convert dot to double, and then I will have my read line there. Right, now that everything is happening according to plan, now what do I do after this? Now what I'm going to do, this is the first object that I want to create. The first object must have an ID, an employee name, and the salary, and it has to be stored inside of an object array. So I'm going to say employees at that specific index, the first object, that is equals to new, employee. And what am I doing here? I am reserving memory for the first employee. Now I know I have a constructor that accepts three things. It accepts the ID, the name, and the salary. So I'm going to pass in ID, name, and salary in this constructor, and there it is. I'm passing in the ID, there it is. I'm passing in the name and the salary, and they are not strongly typed. They are the values that I receive from the user himself. Very important. So this would take, I am reserving memory, so the first object will be stored inside of the employee object at the first index. So it will keep on repeating this for as long as the employee, as long as I is less than the employee dot length. Very, very important. And then remember, what is the length? The length will be determined by the user input. So if the user inputs 10 here, so the employees dot length will be 10, and it will do this until I is not until I is equals to the employee dot length, because it will keep on incrementing this by 1. It will say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and then when it reaches 9, for example, it will do this, and then now the value will be 10, and it will go and check is 10 less than 10, no, and then it will go out. So it will keep on repeating this as long as the input of the user is not equals to I, or the input of the user I is less than this input that you input there. So it will keep on doing that, but you will see now when we continue with this, what do we mean by that? So this is what I'm going to receive. It will keep on storing these objects inside of my employee array. There it is. And then for as many objects as possible that I want to have there. Now to see whether this is working or not, when we exit this for loop, I think it is important that we try to use a for each loop. Now this for each is going to accept an employee class, and I'm going to call this employee in, let's just wait for an autocomplete, in employees. Very good. So what I'm going to do inside here, I want to invoke a method. There is a method inside of the employee which we call print data. Right, so let me come here and just say console.writeLine, and then what I'm going to do there, I'm going to say employee dot, and when you say dot there you have a method which we call print data that accepts no arguments. And then what that does is just to print in the information that we are having in there. Employee in employees. Then why are we having this error there? Argument 1 cannot convert from void to bool. Alright, let us check what is happening here. So we are saying employee. Okay, let me just do this. Remember we said employee dot, and then we said print data. This is a method that we have, and remember this method accepts no arguments. It accepts no arguments and it returns void. So it is a method that accepts no argument. Sorry, it is a method that accepts no arguments. But when we do that, we run into a problem in here. Employee is not null here. Okay, argument 1 cannot convert from void to boolean. This is the information that we are getting. Right, and what are we trying to do in here? We are trying to say, all right, I know this is where my for loop begins and ends, and then when I exit the for loop, I want to create a for each, and then here is my employee class. I'm creating a variable in employees. There it is, which is an array, and then I'm saying employee.print data, and when I do that, I come across some problems. Right, let us just do this and we will come back there. Let us see whether this method will be employed or not, and let us come here first and check something. This public void print data, we have a right, we have the ID, the name, and the salary. Nothing is mysterious about all this. We are fine with that. And then this is the information that we have in here. Let us try to run this code and see exactly what is going to happen in here. Okay, let us try to create maybe 3. Enter ID, I will say 1. Employee name, let's say it's Sam. The salary, it's this amount. Employee ID number 2. Employee name, it's Lucky. And then the salary is this amount. And then employee ID, it's 3. Employee name, it's Zanel. And then enter salary. Now I want you to check something here. We have said now how many objects of type employee do you want, and this was a 3, and we have 1, we have 2. Now we need to enter the salary there, and those are the 3 objects that we have. Right, that is fine. Now we want to have a for each loop where we pass in an employee, a variable in employees, and we want to execute this. And when we hover over there, we are having a problem. Let us look at some potential fixes that might be a possibility for us there, and then let us see whether this is helping us in a way that is possible. I don't see any solution for that. I honestly do not see any solution for that. So how can we do this? How can we do this in such a way that it can do what we want? This is the question that we need to ask ourselves. How do we do that? Right, let's go back to employee, and here we are, we have this right statement. Okay, that is fine, no problem with this. It's public void. This is a method that we have, and then we come in here. Right, we have a right line. We have via the employee variable, I'm having access to this method which we call print data. If that cannot happen, let's say employee, let's say .id like this, and then let us have a concat. Let's have a new line, plus let's have the employee dot name, plus let's have a new line, plus let's have the employee dot salary dot to string. Now let us try to look at it in this way and see whether it will do exactly that which we want. But to differentiate between the data, I'm going to have a right line, and this is what I'm going to do. Right, and after every employee that is printed, I want to have this. Let me just copy this and let me just paste this. Now let us try to run this and check. Now I will say 2, I will say 1. This is the name, this is the salary. I will say 2. This is the name, and this is the salary. And now look what we have. We have 1, the first object, 2, the second object. And now I want us to look at something here. We have the ID, and you see that we don't have any strings in here, so we can just try to make things a little bit more nicer. We can say we can say ID, and then it will print the ID for us. And then we can come here and we can say name. Let me create some spaces there. Concatenation, and we can have the name there. And then we can say salary, and we can have the salary there. Very good. So when we print this, we might have it with some information that can specify to us. No, let me check. It seems like there is something wrong. Let me just quickly check where the problem might be. Oh, okay, let me just have a concatenation there, and the error is now gone. Let us try to see whether things will happen the way we want. I'm going to create 3. This will be ID 1, it will be Samuel, this will be the amount. ID 2, this will be Lucky, and this will be the salary. ID 3, name Zanele, salary will be this amount. And now we have the information. ID 1, name, salary, and then ID 2, name, salary, ID 3, name and salary. So this is how we can just create an object, an array of type object that is not strongly typed, and we can allow the user to enter in numbers, store those numbers inside of an array, and then be able to print those objects that are stored at every position where the array was initialized. So this is something very important which I thought we should share together, so that you can see that we do not always have to have strongly typed array lists. Even using a simple array, we can have the input of the user, and then we can instantiate whatever that needs to be instantiated. Okay, no, that is fine. So this is just something very simple, guys, that I thought I should share with you, and then I will see you in the next tutorial. But before we can say I will see you in the next tutorial, I want us to come here. Remember, we tried to invoke or to call in a method which we call the employee.printData. We tried to invoke that method, and then there were some errors that we came across there for a reason that you saw. So let us look at this differently, so that let me just take you through something so that you can have this information there, the ID, the name and the salary in this manner. So let us just try to invoke this method and see exactly what is going to transpire. So we will just have 2 this time. The ID will be 1, Zanele, this is the amount 2, and this will be Makosa Zana, and this will be the salary, and we have ID 1, name, salary is this. Now you see the data is not the way in which we want. let's just go and fix that inside of this class. So let me check here. We have ID, we have ID, name, we have name, salary, we have salary there, but things are not the way in which we would like to do them. So let's not use it in this way. Just try to do things in order and just say ID and let's just have the ID there. Very good. Sorry. Okay, let us do it in this way. And let us do it in this way. Okay, let me have a right line where I have my ID okay, or let's have a right where I have my ID, and then let me have the name, and I'll just have the name of the person, and let me have the salary, and then I'll just have the salary of this individual, and then let me just have a right line after that. Let's just have a right line after that and see whether things can happen the way in which we want. So I'll just say 2 1 Samuel, salary is the amount, 2 Marcos, and then I will do this. And then now we have ID 1, name, salary, ID 2, name and salary. So this is something very important that I thought I should share with you guys. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to share, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next tutorial.